Now, the word sensational is overused when describing sports events, soccer, Gaelic, golf, or anything else. And hyperbole is a feature of the sports pages, and none of us are free of that charge. However, we've just seen a weekend of football, and particularly yesterday, which was sensational, and that's not hyperbole. Liverpool, the champions, were beaten 7-2 away to Aston Villa, who just survived relegation by a point last year. And Manchester United were beaten 6-1 at home by Spurs, having taken the lead. And that was really an extraordinary result and an extraordinary performance. And we're joined now by John Giles to think about these games, to discuss what happened. And of course, we'll talk about Leeds, John, who drew at Manchester City on Saturday and gave a really good account of themselves. But John, for Liverpool, the champions, with so many outstanding players and a couple of great players, Van Dijk being one of them, to lose 7-2 to Aston Villa is unbelievable. What did you sort of make of it? And I'll start by asking you this question. You played in a great team at Leeds, champions. Did you ever have a day where you went out and got a right hiding like Liverpool got? Because I think every team has a nightmare that we'll all go out, we won't be focused, particularly when you're on top of the world, and we get whipped.
Yeah, it can happen, Eamon. It happened to us at Leeds when we were coming on to our best. We played in a match at Arsenal on a Saturday, and we won. We won 2-1, I think, against Arsenal. And we were playing West Ham. I think it was in the League Cup, but we had a full team out on the Monday night. 7-0.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, 7-0. Absolutely extraordinary. West Ham were easy pickings, weren't they?
Well, they were okay at home. You know, they always did well, but not that well. But 7-0 on the night.
Right.
It just happened. Johnny Bourne was playing up Jeff Hurst. But they're a good team.
Yes.
But they would never win in anything. But it happened. It happened to us.
And what did
they had a great night.
What did Don Revy say? And B, what do you think happened on that night to your team?
Well, Don went mad, as you would expect, and looking up was a Monday, so we had the Tuesday, Wednesday to get ready for the match, and we picked her up again straight away. It was in many ways, obviously, we weren't up for it as well as we should have been, but they played so well on the night. It was just one of those days. It can happen, and that was it. You know, it was a League Cup, but we had the full team out, so. It can happen. On Saturday in Liverpool, obviously. First of all, I thought Villa were very, very good.
Yes. Yeah.
And they have signed a couple of players. I mean, they got a new goalkeeper, Martinez. They got Ross Barkley on loan.
Yeah.
They got Cash at right back that they bought, apparently from Forest. And this lad, who's a real winner, I think, Ollie Watkins, the lad who scored a hat-trick. That wasn't a fluke aiming by him. You know, he looks a really, really good lad and a really good player.
And he hit the crossbar in the second half as well. He could have had 4.
Yeah, and he was through, and he could have scored 5 on the day. So he's a really, really good player. So I think Villa have improved, definitely. I don't see them struggling against relegation this year. Jack Grealish is a very good player and was good again. Now, from Liverpool's point of view, I think they went up for it as well as they could have been, and they played this, we've spoken about it a few times, the high line.
Yes.
And with with Villa playing well and Liverpool playing not so well, they actually controlled the midfield to get at the back four.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen. Actually, I didn't see any of the teams do that to Liverpool last year. So if you're playing the high line and the team is doing what Villa's doing, then it's going to be exposed. And it was exposed badly on the weekend.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And in fact, when Ollie Watkins was interviewed after the match, he referred to the fact that they had worked on it during the week, and they exploited it brilliantly. Now, one of the justifications for a high line, John, is to compress the space that your opponents have. Back four pushes up, midfield pushes up, puts pressure on the ball, and your front men are in this. Mane was missing yesterday, and somebody suggested last night in the post-match that Mane, being such an eager presser of the ball, it might account, not in my book, but Salah, Mane, Firmino, they all are part of it. It's a whole team effort that's really generated and controlled from the back, but it only works, and this is the key, I thought, when I looked at Match of the Day last night, it only works when your midfield players are putting pressure on your opponent in midfield. In other words, there's pressure on the ball, so even if they break through, they can't deliver the pass, the killer pass. Now, again, in this, Jack Grealish was very important in this. He played a part in a lot of chances. So the midfield for Liverpool, I would put my finger on them, and it was Fabinho, Keita, and Wijnaldum. And they didn't get tight. The Villa midfield players had all the time in the world to pick that killer pass out that kills the high line.
Yeah. Well, I don't agree with you entirely on it, because they have a high line anyway. Whether the midfield, there's nothing stopping you from pressing, Eamon, and getting at the opposition without the back four being too high.
Yeah.
They don't have to be that high and still press. That doesn't stop them from pressing.
Jamie Carragher made the point afterwards, and he was one of the best defenders of his generation of players. Yeah. He said, I've never agreed with the high line. I don't agree with it now. You should go with your runner. And that's really what you believe, and it's what I believe as well. But it's deemed now to be old-fashioned. Bayern Munich are playing a high line, and Liverpool, of course, playing with a high line. So it's in vogue.
Yeah, well, that doesn't make it right.
No.
Eamon. Just because it's new, there's lots of things happening in the game, in my opinion, that's not right. Like midfield players looking backwards to pass the ball sideways or backwards instead of turning on the ball. But certainly the high line in my day and your day was there, and it was called the offside trap.
Exactly, and it was fatal.
That was the offside trap. But that never worked on a big base, on a long basis anyway.
No.
I played with a very good team, as you know, at least defended well. We never played offside, Eamon.
No.
You know what I mean? We catch teams offside if they were overdoing it, but we never played to play offside. And it justifies itself at all. I agree totally with Jamie Carragher that you can still press the ball. I mean, when it's the forwards and midfield players that press the ball.
Yeah.
Eamon, right? So the back four, get into a position if and when they lose the ball anyway.
Yeah.
They don't have to be up beside it. When the high line starts for Liverpool or any of the other teams that do that, is when the opposition do get the ball, right?
Yes.
That's the time that they should be defending instead of playing the high line. It's an offside trap. You take a chance on it.
Yeah,
and Villa did it very well, particularly through Jack Grealish, as you say, that they had players actually who did it very, very cleverly and got through. But if you look at the goals yesterday, you were talking about Gomez and not playing the lad playing one of the goals, Eamon.
Yeah.
There was no need for him.
No.
There's no need for the other three to step out at that particular stage.
No,
there's no need for it.
It's an
but
important...
the players that they have, particularly Liverpool, who are all quick. They're all quick players. There's nobody going to catch them on a run.
Yeah. And, I mean, we should say that Pep Guardiola, the most celebrated coach of this age, introduced it to Manchester City and English football, and they've been successful with it. Now, one of the things I would say is the great art of defending was perfected, I think, by Italians and still is in many ways. There's absolutely zero way they'd play a high line. And the best defence, or one of them in our time watching the Premier League, John, would have been the Chelsea defence with John Terry at the heart of it. Carvalho, John Terry being key players, and Terry controlled that. They defended ridiculously deep by these standards, and they had to because John Terry couldn't run. He was a great defender, but he couldn't run, so he had to be deep.
No, he wasn't quick, but he read it well.
Brilliantly,
but it wasn't a policy by Chelsea to run out. I mean,
oh no,
the high line is running out, and hoping that when they played the ball, that the opposition would be offside.
Yep,
that's a wing and a prayer at the time. Now, a lot of times it worked for Liverpool. Liverpool didn't concede many goals last year because they had such good players and they weren't under that much pressure. And the midfield players, as you said, were doing their stuff. They're very, very good. They didn't concede many goals, but they conceded a few.
Yeah, they did.
From that particular, and they got away with it a few times.
They got away with it. They got away with it against Arsenal in the last home game, John, when it was 2-1. Lacazette got 1-on-1 with Alisson.
Yes.
And Alisson came out. He stood tall, and he saved the day. The other thing, of course, about the high line is if you have a goalkeeper like Ederson at Manchester City or Alisson, both of whom are very comfortable with the ball at their feet, but also they are alert, and if a ball is played through, they sometimes get out of their goal and intercept it before the forward can get to it. But I think the net point that you're making, and I agree with you, is you don't need to do it, and if you do it to an extreme extent, and the opposition know what you're doing and prepare during the week, it makes you very vulnerable.
It can make, it can be very, very vulnerable. And now again, when I was at Leeds, we played a team that played the offside. We knew before the week out. We'd say before, especially at a diagonal ball.
Yes.
Right. We used to say, like the forwards, when we get on the ball in the midfield, don't worry about getting through.
Yeah.
Just get out.
Yeah.
And one of the our midfield players would go from a deep position.
Yeah.
So what would happen is, say we were on the right side with Bremner and Eddie Gray. Well, Eddie would know that when Billy was on the ball, Alan Clark and Mick Jones would get out. Eddie, you just go.
Yeah.
Because he's coming from a diagonal position.
Yeah.
And it was simple.
Yeah.
Or it can be simple. Because, but the thing is with Liverpool, you see, last year when they were pressing, and they do press particularly well, it's very seldom that the opposition had the ball clearly enough and on their own enough to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
They would catch them. But there was a few times last year Liverpool did get caught out, and there's a few times they didn't score. And you say Alisson's a very good goalkeeper, but you don't want to be dependent on your goalkeeper to be stopping somebody going through on their own.
Yeah. Just one other...
You don't need it.
No.
And that's the thing I make with all that I mean with Liverpool. They don't need it. Gomez can run. Van Dijk can run. The two fullbacks can run.
Yeah.
It's not necessary.
Right. Now, we should, and you did when you began talking about this match, John, pay tribute to Aston Villa. And they were really well prepared, and they have signed some good players, Watkins being one of them, and they also signed a lad who played really well last night at the back, Konsa, very, very good player.
Yeah.
Yep, and they have Mings from last year, who is a very good player as well. Yeah. And Jack Grealish, you've always liked Grealish. He's a player we could have signed, or we tried to in the Keane O'Neill era. We didn't get him, but he's a very, very good player, and he made a big contribution to the way Villa played yesterday. Yeah,
he's very talented lad. I mean, again, he signed a long-term contract now with Villa. But I mean, Man U or any of the top clubs, I would have tried to sign him.
Yep.
I think he's good enough. The better the team he'd play, and he'd be even better. But he was very, very good. But you'd have to say on the match last night, Eamon, that everything did go Villa's way. I mean, I think there were 3 goals that were deflected. So you can have a night like that. Like Villa can have a night, and Liverpool can have a night like that. But it's not ideal. Obviously, from Liverpool, you have to learn from it. You have to get back. And I think Klopp is worried because now the lads are gone on an international trip, and he doesn't have time to work with them before the next match. They could get injured and all the various things that managers really worry about at this particular stage. Because ideally, when you get a defeat like that, what you want to do as a manager, in my opinion, is to get back into training as soon as you possibly can. Yeah, and put right what was going wrong. Yeah. Now he's got to stay at home, Klopp, and wonder how did that go wrong? But anyway, that's football, and it is a worry. But I think that they will pick up from it, but I think Villa avoided by a point last year. I think, Eamon. I think Villa will be at least mid-table this year. I think they've improved a lot, and they've got a few players in. They weren't the Villa that were there last year, and I think they definitely took Liverpool by surprise.
Yeah, and Klopp pointed out he'll have 2 days with them before the derby match against Everton. And that derby match is at 12:30 on a Saturday, so it's going to be a big game now. They've got to gather themselves up and respond. Just a word on Villa's coach, Dean Smith. He was at Brentford. He did a great job, John, there. I used to watch them in the championship games. He created a passing team. He believes in the footballing way of doing things. And in terms of preparing for Liverpool, he would have been the coach. And yet, this is where coaches earn their corn. On the training ground, during the week, talking to the players, going through the way they have to operate this thing of timing your runs, getting in behind this high line and causing damage. And he did a really good job in his preparation for last night. And what was very impressive, after the game when he was interviewed, totally level-headed, no punch in the air, no jumping up and down, no gloating, no saying we were this, that, the other. Very, very composed and modest. And I would say if they didn't stay up by a point, which they did, he'd probably have been sacked. So it's a nice story to take out of that game last night. He is a really good coach.
Yeah, he's a good lad, Eamon. You know, as you say, he's a modest lad, and what's good about it, as you say, he's planning and that. Yeah. Obviously, and I think the most important thing with a manager is having, well, first of all, to have the authority to pick the players you want, and then picking the right players. Yes. I mean, he hasn't spent much money, Eamon, as we know, but he obviously knows a player. Yeah, you know, and then when they get them in, then they can work on them. You know, but I think he's had the freedom because I think he's proven himself there. I think they had their director of football, Eamon, because I don't think he's even down on the sheet as the manager. I think he's the head coach.
Head coach,
but I think they trust him to get the players in that he wants, and obviously once he gets those players in, then he can work on them. Because if you don't get the players in you want, and they're not you're not going to be able to. You can work all you like on them, but they're not going to be what you want. But he's done a terrific job, and he's been a good lad. He's been a modest lad. He didn't brag about it, because we've seen it in the past, and I've seen managers like I know we've had a few shocks at Leeds. Oh, the managers be going nuts. You know, we watched them last week, and they didn't do this right, and we worked on it, and we did this, and we did that, and the other, patting themselves on the back. Yeah, he's not like that at all. Just get on with the job. He knows next match is a different match altogether, and they could be on the end of it hiding themselves. So there's nothing to get big-headed about in football. No.
Now, John, Manchester United and Spurs. Historically, Spurs have a shocking record at Old Trafford, and in a famous remark, Alex Ferguson, when they were preparing for a match against Spurs, and someone expressed a worry, he said, look, it's only Spurs. And someone actually on social media last night put up this thing, it's only Spurs. Well, it was only Spurs yesterday, John. Now, this Manchester United club is in a bad position. They've had Ed Woodward as chief executive since 2013, which is 7 years now. And the club, unbelievably, are in the Champions League. They finished third. I thought Solskjaer wasn't the right man for the job. Then, when they finished third, did well in the Cups last year, beat City twice at the end of the season in important games. I thought maybe he is the man. And now, looking at him, I just feel that he hasn't got the authority. They haven't opened the checkbook, and he's been hung out to dry. I noted Roy Keane had always been very supportive of him, and Paul Scholes, who are people who tell it as it is, as they see it. But Keane said last week he's in the last chance saloon, and he's been put there by the club, really, hasn't he?
Yeah, Well, I never fancied him, Eamon, to be honest.
No, I know that.
I think they needed a young Ferguson.
Yeah.
I thought Conte was the man to do it.
Yeah, from Chelsea.
I think he's a very, very nice lad, Solskjaer.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has the authority or the standing. I don't think he's in charge of the buying and selling.
No.
For example, I just don't think he's in charge. And like yesterday I think yesterday was a bigger disaster for Manchester United than Liverpool had.
Yeah,
and it was
course,
a bad day for Liverpool, and they're obviously say. But United, like they should be making progress at this particular stage. He had a good run last year when they came in, but again, like they bought Fernandes.
Yes.
I don't think he's in charge of that. They're talking about getting Cavani now.
Yeah.
Who's not exactly a kid, and he's been a great player, but
he's 33.
Great.
Yeah.
For Manchester United, I mean. But I don't think Solskjaer is in charge of that.
No.
And obviously the players, the longer you're at the club, would know that he doesn't have the authority. I mean, I'd say I've never seen a display by Manchester United when Ferguson was there, even in these early days when he wasn't doing particularly well. He'd scared the life out of the players.
Yeah.
And like I can't see Solskjaer doing that. I think if it's going okay, it's going okay. But the way they played yesterday and the lack of discipline in the team.
Yeah.
Again, Pogba being involved in that.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw at the end taking the fella down.
Maguire, John, a player they paid 75 million for after Van Dijk had gone to Liverpool and proved himself. Maguire, I liked Maguire at Leicester. I thought he was a good player. But for a few months now, he has not been playing well, and he's not really been showing the kind of leadership you'd expect. And yesterday, I thought he had a very, very poor game.
Well, he did, but so did every one of them, Eamon. I think that incident he was in the summer has affected him.
Possibly,
I definitely do. I think he's a very, very good player.
Yeah.
But I think this has affected him, and he definitely hasn't played in recent times. But neither have any of them.
No.
I mean, yesterday it was a shambles.
Yeah.
It was just a total shambles. And it shouldn't mean Pogba giving the penalty away, for example.
Yeah, and also he was culpable for Sergio Aurier's goal, the pass from Hallberg in midfield. It went inside him. He was jogging around, not paying attention. I think he really is a disgrace, isn't he?
Well, he shouldn't be there, Eamon.
No.
I mean, again, you go back to the time. Could you imagine Ferguson living with Pogba?
No,
way.
He got rid of him.
Just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think Solskjaer has the authority there to say, I don't want this fella.
Yeah.
Because there's a commercial interest, isn't there, Eamon, in the jerseys?
Selling shirts and stuff, yeah.
So Woodward would be involved. Like, I get the impression it's Woodward that's involved in getting the players in and getting the players out or whatever. And it's 90% of what a manager should be doing.
Yes.
Has Solskjaer picked Cavani, for example?
No.
I don't see it.
No.
Eamon. I just can't see it. I can't see him being in charge of the situation. And the players over time will know that.
I'll tell you.
And particularly the likes of Pogba, and take advantage of him.
One player I think he does want, he's expressed the desire to get this young guy, Jadon Sancho from Dortmund. And the other player, he wanted Erling Haaland, Alfinga Haaland's son, who's an outstanding player.
Yes.
But he shares an agent, Haaland, with Pogba. And the agent is fighting with Manchester United, and the agent has claimed publicly that he stopped Haaland going to United because he was fighting with the club. That's not a good situation to find yourself in. Haaland is world-class, John, I think, and time may prove that. But as you say, if Solskjaer has no real input into the decisions that have been made about who's coming into the club, who's gone out, then Manchester United are on a sort of slippery slope, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. I mean, everybody expects Manchester United to be up there, to be challenging Liverpool. That's what they expect.
Yeah.
Whether the supporters and the club is such a huge club. That's not the case.
No.
I mean, they're a million miles behind Liverpool.
Yeah.
And they expect to be winning. And again, the transfer policy. I mean, they've got Fernandes as a midfield player, he's a very good player. And Van Beek, is it?
Van de Beek, Van de Beek, yeah.
No, he seems to be a similar type of player to Van Beek.
Yeah.
And it's all seemed to be forwards that they're buying. It doesn't look a balanced plan to me of what they want to bring in. And I don't think that Solskjaer has any say in it at all. I really don't. And I feel sorry for them in that respect. He seems a good lad, but I don't think he has the authority there. So don't forget their big years, for 20-odd years was under Ferguson.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt he was in charge of the situation.
Yeah, and he
wouldn't have had a Pogba. I mean, he got rid of Pogba when he was a young fella.
He did, yeah.
Because he was being too cheeky or whatever it was.
Well, the chief executive, John, Manchester United's chief executive in the Ferguson era was David Gill, who was a very smart guy. He was very close to Ferguson. They were very close. They did the business together, and you could be sure that David Gill saw his role as chief executive facilitating Ferguson to get what he felt he needed. So if he got a list from Ferguson, he'd try to make that happen. And there's no sense at all that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is drawing up a list and saying, I'd like those three guys there.
No, he's not. He's not in charge. There's definitely that was the big thing at Manchester United when Ferguson moved in.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, he got it going, as we know. But Gill was his man. I think if he said, "I want Joe Bloggs," I'll try and get him for you. Yeah. And he was genuine with it. So they left it to Ferguson. There's no doubt. Ferguson, for a good 20 years, was in charge of the situation.
Yes.
And 90% of the job in management like that is having the authority and the power to bring in the players you want and get rid of the players that you don't want.
Yeah.
I don't think that is anywhere near the situation at Old Trafford.
No.
And Solskjaer's going to get the stick for it, Amy. You know, he's the front man.
And I noticed on social media last night that Marcus Rashford put up an apology on his own Twitter account. He's a nice, good kid. You know, he's led this campaign to get the government to look after poor kids, make sure they get their lunches and all of that. He's a good young man with the right instincts and a very good player. But he apologised and he said, "I'm a Manchester United fan myself." He felt the need to apologise to the fans. So, and you'd have to say, for players brought in like Maguire and who are, Manchester lads, like Marcus Rashford, it's really, really tough. You pull on a red shirt, you're playing for Manchester United, which is something you did, John. The stakes are higher than playing for anyone else, and the expectations are higher, aren't they?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge club. Obviously one of the biggest clubs in the world. I mean, and the fans expect.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do it, and it's the old-fashioned way. Get the manager in that you want, and support him, as they did Ferguson. But you see, I think Solskjaer came in. I don't want to be having a go at him because he seems a nice lad, and I think he was willing to take the job under any circumstances. To be honest.
Yeah.
I think Ferguson would have demanded. I think my man would have been Conte.
Yes.
To bring in, because he's the players at Chelsea didn't like him. I mean, he only won the league and the cup in 2 seasons because they didn't like his training methods.
Yeah.
Well, tough. That's what he'd say. If you don't like them, tough. You get on with it and you're in charge. I can't see Solskjaer being that type of lad. And then if you got Woodward and who is in charge of the buying and selling or the incomings and outgoings, then you have a recipe for disaster. And I think that's what's happening now. You don't have a consistency.
Yeah.
You have the likes of Pogba doing what he wants to do and certain players doing what they want to do. And that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Okay.
Leeds United, John.
Yeah.
They took 2 points off Manchester City. They have a legendary coach, Marcelo Bielsa, an Argentine. Pep Guardiola has said he's the greatest coach in the world. And many others have testified to his achievements, and his achievements in Argentina are huge. Now he's got Leeds into the Premier League, and they're really exciting. He throws bodies forward, and he gets his players very fit, and they gave Manchester City a run for their money, which is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah. It's. I think that's what they're going to be like, Eamon. I think well, we saw him go to Liverpool and do what they do every week, home or away.
Yeah.
So he's not going to go. He's not going to be defensive. I think there's going to be exciting matches for them. I think they won't be consistent, Eamon.
Yeah.
I think they'll win matches that you think they're never going to win, and they'll lose matches you think they're never going to lose. But they'd be good to watch. That's for sure. There'd be no sitting back and playing 10 players behind the ball and all that.
No.
I think that's really, you put the pressure on them as high up the pitch as you can. Like City started well again and it looked like they were going to get well on top. But Leeds stuck at it. And by the end of the game, they were on top. So I think it's going to be typical Leeds. And I think what happened with City would be it's going to be typical City.
Yeah, they're very poor, John. Now.
Yeah, they've gone for winning things.
Well, they they haven't really been very adroit in the transfer market. They can't replace Aguero, who's still injured, but is also cracking on. No replacement for David Silva, for example, who was such a wonderful player for them. So the picture looks bleak.
It's not good for them, Eamon.
For City.
Like they have, again, we spoke about it the other day. The likes of Company, Aguero, David Silva, Bernard Silva, Fernandinho's gone. This is a lot to replace. And I think what I find with Pep, he has a certain philosophy, Eamon, and he needs the players. Yeah. Now, his philosophy is not going to change, and he hasn't got the players.
Right. Just a final thought, John. Leeds scored 3 goals at Anfield. They were, just up from the Championship. And Aston Villa, who just avoided going into the Championship by 1 point, scored 7 against Liverpool. That's 10 goals. Yeah. Liverpool need to have a look at themselves, don't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But having a look at yourself is never ending. You're never satisfied. To be fair to Klopp, I don't think he's complacent in any way.
Yeah.
But that's football. Yeah. You do brilliantly because you're doing certain things. And you only have to come back a little bit on what you're doing, Eamon, to happen what's happened to Liverpool.
Yes.
But we know they can do it. I'd be surprised if Klopp doesn't get a grip on it and they go on from there. I think every so often you probably need something like that.
Yeah.
To get you back to where you should be, because it's not easy week in, week out, match in, match out, to have the attitude that Liverpool had last year. I thought they would pick it up straight away, but it's not unusual for it to happen. You get a couple of kicks up the backside, and you get back to where you should be. And I think that will happen with Liverpool. Okay,
John, great to talk to you again after talking to you all day yesterday. Thanks very much for joining us on The Stand. That's John Giles, a great player and a great coach indeed, and a hard man to play for. He could cut you dead with a look. Thanks to John.